What do you have some B-dubs again? What's going on?
Of course, it's Thursday.
Hey everyone, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're doing a podcast with ABSTERG'S. You probably know him as being one of the best R shamans that's out there. He's been competing for years and years and years. We'll be showing and talking about that through this. And we'll also be talking about Resto Shaman in Shadowlands. Where are they going to be? What do you need to know? Some tips for you, and some things that he wishes were in the kit of R shaman. We'll also be talking about some things about ABSTERG'S. If you don't know him, you'll get to know him here. So let's jump into it. Cool. So I just wanted to first talk a little bit about you. So I was doing some research.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Jelly Rogue is a lot better than Pika.
Yeah, 10 times. 100 million.
About you, and I saw that you've been competing in at least the circuits that are out there and tracked since like 2015. And I saw you through D Machine's GDC tournaments, and I saw you playing with like G Links and Zev, and like, you know, this is before my time of really being in the scene or like paying that much attention. And it's funny because, you know, you see the same people playing, and you're playing with people that are now on, you know, various other teams. But I just wanted to ask, you know, back then, you know, when you started like getting into it, how did you get into the competitive scene? Like, what drove you to do that?
I mean, how do I put this? I think it's the same for a lot of people. I think a lot of people, you know, get high rating and they enjoy the game and they enjoy that competitive aspect of it, even in regards to ladder, just being able to push rating. And I think that transitioned into, whenever that happens with someone in WoW, it always, for the most part, transitions into wanting to play in tournaments. Because you're high rated already, so it's like, oh, why not? Like, I want to play in a tournament. That sounds fun. It's always a good experience, and people always are curious about how it goes. So that's pretty much what it was. I had my first one in just like the MOP qualifiers or something in 2014. Just played with a random team, thought that was cool. And that was like the introduction into it and how everything works with brackets and seating. So that was the initial part of it. And then ever since then, I don't know, it's just, I think when you are a WoW player, that's one of the biggest things about playing high rating in WoW.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just love to compete. So I think a lot of the people nowadays too, like that's the reason they're still in the game. No matter how people perceive the game or how people think of the game, even the players themselves, obviously, with any sort of criticism they have, I think a lot of people just, they love to compete.
And
Everyone loves that. So
yeah, and how did you get into it? Like, how did you get into WoW in general, and then like getting into competition? You mentioned you were in the, you know, you kind of got a random team in like 2014 MOP, but when did you really like start pushing it and like realize like, hey, this is something I want to do? Was it just and like when you were picking up WoW and through the X packs or whenever you started?
Well, I played it since the beginning because my dad played it, and then I basically, much like other people who are introduced to WoW, especially early on in the day, back in Vanilla and BC and Wrath and the glory days, so to speak, you kind of just fall in love with the game. So that's kind of how it was for me. I don't think I didn't play as much WoW as I do now, not even close back then, but I definitely have always had a love for WoW from the beginning, and then started rising, you know, in rating in Kata, got more rating in MOP, finally started playing at the top of the top, getting rank 1 and Glad and all these things. And I know, it's like I said, it's like that's the next step. Like after you get to the rating and you get your Glad, you get your rank 1, that's always the next step, is like, oh, I want to try competing, for most people. So that's kind of how it was for me. 2015, I basically wanted to take it a little bit more serious because I was doing so well and getting my name out and having people recognize me as, you know, being one of the top people. So 2015 was kind of me just trying to put a team together because I really thought that I could do well. And then that's when I ended up getting Jelly Beans. I ended up getting Wallabear for a bit too, because all these people, we've all played together on ladder for a long time. So the next step obviously is just making a team, but it's always a huge commitment too. So definitely hard to do that. But
Yeah.
and Jelly Beans, Wallabear, and then we had a lock named Vossel that I played with, because I mean, it's really hard to find people, and we knew him, and it was like, all right, let's do it. We're a team.
That's awesome.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's cool, and it definitely can sense your like how team oriented you are. When I watched you playing with Pika and Wizka, and you just seem to be having like a ball the entire time, even with the soju flowing and everything. It's just always a good time, even though you guys are still queuing at 2800 plus. You're just having a blast, and that's what it's about. So it's awesome to see that. And you mentioned,
I think it's important. I think it's super important for people to enjoy your teammates at the least. Like, yeah, I understand that people want to play with certain people, whatever, but at the end of the day, you need to enjoy your team. And I think it's really important to be not only friends with your teammates, but obviously just not hate them at all. I don't know. I'm really close with all the people that I've been teams with for years now. So
yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned that your dad played WoW. Was he what class did he play? And is that how you got into Shaman, or what brought you to Resto Shaman and like healing? Is that where you started, or?
I know. So basically, this is where that multi-class meme comes in with that everyone tries to hit me with in the stream. So my dad played a hunter, and he raided in vanilla, but then after vanilla he just became super casual, and he would always just level a bunch of characters. So what I would do, because we had 2 accounts back then, obviously one so both of us can play, but he got another account from one of his coworkers that didn't want to play anymore. So he had 2, and we'd both be able to play, like me in the computer room and him in his room, whatever, vice versa. Both be able to play the game at the same time, obviously, so we don't have to fight over an account.
Yeah.
And he would basically, how it started was I had a warrior on like the main account that was his. That was where my first character was. That I made back in vanilla.
Dude, why you fudge?
And then he had another account that he would play if I ever was on that one. Like I said, he would play on the other one, and he would just level a bunch of stuff and
that's funny.
Play different characters and mess around. So basically, as a kid, keep in mind I'm like 11, 12 years old. I would always just log on the other account and just play them for fun. Like I would log on, just like do battlegrounds or something, and I'm just like, you got to keep in mind too, I'm clicking everything. Like I'm clicking every single spell. I'm moving with the arrow keys. I'm not even using like the WASD anything.
That's hilarious.
So I'm using my arrow keys. I'm clicking every spell, and I'm just doing battlegrounds like level 70 battlegrounds and like full greens and stuff on all these characters. Just having the time of my life. And basically I've always done that. I'd log on his priest, his mage, his shaman. He had a rogue at one point that he leveled up randomly. So I'd always just log on these characters. And eventually, in Wrath, I kind of stuck to Shaman a little bit more from BC to Wrath, but I still played my Warrior mainly. But I would always log on that character the most out of all the random ones that he had. I'd always log on that one the most because I don't know, was just kind of gravitated towards it.
Yeah.
So eventually in Wrath, because I would always play random characters like the Lock and the Shaman, I had a friend that I met in Wrath that was kind of like the same age as me, and we'd always play 2s. And eventually one day, he was like, you know what? We would probably do better if you were a healer. And I was like, oh, wait, that actually, kind of makes sense. And then I started playing Resto, and that's pretty much it. Ever since then, I've played it. So
wow. So he put that on you. He put that on you.
Yeah, basically, because we used to play like Hunter Warrior, like 1600, like play like Lock Hunter 1600, Ellie Hunter. We're just like 1550, 1600, like 1700 rated.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, like we'll probably just do better if you're a healer. And then so that was like probably season 7, like halfway through season 7 or something in Wrath. And then I played Shaman since then. That's awesome. And I stopped playing my Warrior in, I think, middle of Kata is when I just completely stopped playing it.
It's probably for the best, really. It's probably.
I mean, I think it's worked out. I think it's worked out pretty well.
You know what? Yeah, there you go. And I have a question about your heard you talk on stream about being a big fan of UFC, being a big fan of Michael Jordan, being a big fan of like sports, right? Do you how did that kind of play into your competitive spirit and like what you're trying to go for? Do you think, or yeah?
I mean, I think I've always been competitive, because I used to play. I played soccer until I was like 18.
Okay.
Obviously, it all transitioned into WoW once. So basically, long story short, my travel team disbanded after one of the seasons, and it's just a normal thing to happen, but you have to try out for another team. And like in my head, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like almost 18. I'm like, I don't want to try out for another team. This was the team I was on. So
Right.
I basically just ended up staying in, obviously just finishing high school and then thinking about school after that. And then I just spent all my time on WoW after that. The only thing that was keeping me outside or like keeping me from playing WoW 15 hours a day was playing soccer.
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
then, so when that ended, it was full on, just, I don't even know what to say. I don't even think it's an offensive thing to say, but basement dweller. That's what I was. It was like instantly, I'm just sitting on WoW 15 hours a day.
Yeah,
That was
well,
my life.
well, I saw your first video you uploaded to YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's called "Dying in Stuns," and I'm pretty sure there's some clips in there with you in a pretty dark room. So maybe it was the basement.
No, that's the first floor. We don't have a basement, but it looks bad. I have like the really I've got the terrible camera that's like that webcam's probably like 25 years old or something. It's super grainy. It's got like its own weird like orange.
Hey, I
like,
think you're
tone
looking
to
pretty
it.
good. I think you're looking pretty good. I think you really set the stage for Asmongold. Really, I mean that's kind of what his light just on your face and then dark behind you. You know, so I think you could be called the
there you go.
trendsetter. I mean, I'm just saying.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It literally looks like I'm in a Ghost Hunter film.
Yeah,
For sure.
yeah, that's awesome. No, that's cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I mean, that's a lot of like how you got into it, especially with family. It's always cool to hear. Like I never know when like people's family are into the game. One of my good friends, you know, his parents play WoW, and I'm like, I never, you know, I don't know. Just wouldn't have guessed, but you know, it's just different for everybody. But you mentioned like, you know, not wanting to go on to a different or try out for a different team for soccer, right? But for competing in WoW, it seems like you've been on a whole lot of different teams across a lot of different, you know, and whether they're like formal or less formal, like the GCD tournaments, or whether they're for, you know, the like BlizzCon, for example, or the, you know, the different competitive seasons, you know, because you can see like every season, you know, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, you know, until the move, you know, you were kind of switching teams around. Was that something that like wasn't a big deal to you and it's all in like good spirits, or like how did you like kind of handle like switching teams so often? And by the way, I noticed you play with a lot of hunters. I'm just saying, a lot of hunters.
Yeah, I've just loved hunters. I've loved hunters. I've loved playing with hunters forever. But I don't know. It's basically just been. That's kind of like that was a normal thing in WoW. I mean, that's still kind of a normal thing, but the normal thing in WoW, it seems like, is people always swap teams after the tournament. So you would have like, what's it called? You'd have the normal tourney scene where it's like kind of in March-ish, all the way down in November for BlizzCon, and then right after BlizzCon, there's like a 2-3 month period where everyone is thinking, who am I going to play with? What's going on? I lost with this team. It's got to not be my problem. It's got to be their problem. And then everyone's swapping teams. It's always been like that. So
That's hilarious.
I don't
I
know.
deserve the best.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been like that. We're always trying to just swap up and stuff after, but
That's wild.
I don't know. I'm very not only do I think I'm very loyal, but I do enjoy the people I play with for a reason. So it's hard for me to want to kind of disband a team or get away from that. Like even when I told Jelly and Wallabear back in when was this? The beginning of Legion, when I told them that I was probably gonna like play for a different team. And this is after like 2 years of us being on the team. Even that was like really hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It's just hard for me to kind of do things like that.
Yeah.
And kind of just leave the group no matter what it is, especially when it's people that I really do enjoy hanging out with and friends. So
Yeah.
But even then, it's always been a normal thing for WoW. It's definitely weird to swap teams, but at the end of the day, that's kind of just how it is. And then for all the GCD tournaments and stuff, I think those are different just because there wasn't a point system or anything. So
yeah,
and they were like bi-weekly or something too. So they were quite often. So you would always have just random people want to play for fun and stuff. And that's how that went about. Because
cool.
I've had random tournaments with multiple teams.
Yeah, that's cool.
So those tournaments are different, but it's kind of the same thing. People just experimenting, if you will, during those.
Yeah, sounds provocative, but all right. But last question before we jump into Shadowlands stuff, though. You went to BlizzCon 2015. And then you went back in 2018. How was it different? Like, how was your experience different? I'm guessing, maybe you went to BlizzCon, multiple times, just going there. But like, how was it like from the competitive perspective, like going the first time and then 3 years later, kind of coming back and
let's see. Yeah, so I made the lands before, but obviously that was my second BlizzCon. So that was pretty cool. I don't know. I go to BlizzCon every year, or I have until COVID. Obviously, I've gone since 2015 when I first made it. So I've had the experience of not a player and then as a player, and both are amazing. I definitely would say that I much rather prefer to play, just because it's I think it's a very nice experience, and it's a lot of definitely a lot of adrenaline with that, especially when you're winning.
yeah.
But I don't know. The difference was basically the production was insane from back then to now. Like it's so much different. Production value is a lot better. Shout out D Machine for that. It's insane what they have done in the last several years. But aside from that, I think, and this is gonna sound bad, I just kind of thought that I could win. I didn't think that in 2015.
Oh, really?
In 2015, I didn't think I could win. I thought we could do okay. We'll try our best. But like in 2018, I was like, wow, I can actually win.
That's awesome.
That was the difference mainly.
Yeah. That sounds pretty hype. Yeah, when I've been for two different years, and I just sit at the arena. I mean the arena tournament the entire time, and it's just like it. Yeah, I mean it was like 2017, 2018, and yeah, dude, their production value is crazy, and you can just feel it. It's so, and so I can only imagine from your perspective sitting up there trying to press, trying to use your keybinds and your mouse while everybody's freaking out. So that's awesome. That's really exciting. But cool. No, thanks for sharing that. So all right, so let's jump into Shadowlands. Listen, our shaman is getting they're only getting a few changes, right? They're getting like Water Shield, getting that weird new talent, Surge of Earth. They haven't changed. They made Hex go down to you can take the PvP talent to basically make it no change. But what is your take on what's going to change for Resto Shamans in PvP going from BFA to Shadowlands? Like, what do you think is going to be like that people should be aware of with the changes?
Basically, I think Shaman is somewhat copy pasted. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest things would be obviously the Water Shield and Mantide are very important, but the true biggest thing for me is the fact that your damage spells are actually a lot lower now. So they did recently, they nerfed the proc rate of your Lava Surge's Resto, so I think it's like 15% now. But the damage cost, which was initially done from BFA to Shadowlands, the mana cost of your Flame Shock has been lowered, and your Lava Burst is still kind of low, and then Purge is low too. So the fact that your offensive spells, mainly Flame Shock, are a lot lower mana cost, I think is going to be a lot better for the class, and have it kind of feel better. Because in BFA, the issue was you were kind of you're still kind of an Earthen Totem bot in Shadowlands, to be honest, but the biggest thing about BFA was that your Flame Shot cost so much mana that it was pretty much never worth pressing, ever. It wasn't worth pressing. The damage is okay, but obviously you want to make sure you're getting Lava Burst with it. But if you're wasting so much mana on just the initial Flame Shock, it wasn't worth it. So BFA kind of made it so you didn't really do much damage outside of that. You spam Purge at some points, but I think this change is going to be what makes it a lot more fun. That, and then I think the Hex change is going to be very important too. Even having the option of being able to spam Hex someone with a no cooldown, like you're basically a mage at that point. So I think that'll be a huge thing as well.
Yeah, that's pretty. It'll be an interesting playstyle. And it's funny how everything you just mentioned, well, minus like the mana back, but was all about offensive. Offensive power. Do you think that that's the playstyle that our shamans are going to have to take in Shadowlands? And one of the big changes that I know like people are asking about is like, okay, you don't have Pack Spirit anymore. Like, how are you going to live? Like, what are you going to do about your healing throughput? So like, what is your take on that?
I think so. Where my head is kind of at with that is a lot of that depends on a lot of that is kind of dependent on your soulbind, whichever one you choose in your covenant. So I think that's always been a hard part of Shaman is living. I think BFA, like Legion, kind of slowly got away from that because that's always been the skill cap of Shaman. You know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
surviving because you didn't have a wall before. You didn't have any sort of crazy cooldown that you can like get away with or any like insane mobility. Obviously, you had Ghost Wolf, but the hardest thing about Shaman was always living, and Legion kind of took away from that. BFA, kind of made that a real thing with Pack Spirit and being able to sit with full Ghost Wolf traits and stuff. But
Right.
now that that's gone, I think it's kind of skill cap again for Shaman or one of them. So I think it's gonna be really strange for people for sure. But I think Soulbinds and Covenants kind of fix that. So I think right now where my head's at is I'm probably gonna end up going Kyrian.
Okay.
Just because they have a lot of defensive traits with the potion and the potion and the traits where like if you get low HP, you stun everyone around you.
Oh, right, right.
I think those are probably going to be the best ones. Not to mention you have with the path you can take, you can also get a defensive whatever they're called, conduit. You can get a defensive conduit, so you can get things like I think you can get extra healing surge healing on yourself, which is one of the conduits.
Right. Right.
I think that's going to be very important because that combined with swelling waves, you can basically get one healing surge maybe and kind of live. So obviously you just have to worry about getting that one cast off. But that's kind of where my head's at. I think that's going to be the hardest part about Shaman, and I definitely understand a lot of people being worried about that. But I think Kyrian will help, and then obviously being able to play swelling waves will help, and it'll be an adjustment for people.
Yeah.
It definitely will, but I don't think it's going to be an impossible task, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Do you think that the heal? Because I know I've heard you say it too. That like in BFA, shamans don't really have heal. Like they don't have that much healing throughput. Do you think that that's the same in Shadowlands, or do you think like with the changes to Riptide, does that like kind of change your mind or anything like that?
I think, and I've talked about this quite a bit. I think it feels really bad on pre-patch. Your healing outside of Riptide, and even in Shadowlands, it feels a little bit off. But I think obviously with full gear and all the stats you want, and being able to play or being able to have your conduits, I think that's going to change it because you do have a conduit that makes it so your next wave and surge do a percentage more healing, but obviously we don't have that yet. So
Right.
you get that in Shadowlands, and then you have it so your next 3 spells after you press healing stream get the bonus effect, and then on top of that you're most likely going to play Echo anyways, so you have 2 healing streams, which obviously means you can kind of like healing stream, use your 3 spells, healing stream again, use your 3 spells. You know what I mean? You kind of chain that buff. So
That's cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And what I'll put you on the spot. What I mean, obviously you're rocking and rolling with your team, but is there any particular comps you think might make a comeback this time around? The shift. Obviously, tuning's not done. Obviously, PvP balancing, all that stuff isn't quite here yet. But with Marksman kind of back on the table, with Affliction Warlock coming back, do you see any comps that you would be excited to play as our shaman in threes?
I think there's a lot of things, man. That's one thing I'm excited about for Shadowlands is I think, and I hope that there's going to be a lot more comp diversity. I really hope. I really hope so. But that's what I think is going to happen. That's what my brain is telling me is going to happen, and my heart hopes will happen. But comps specifically, I don't know. I'm excited to play a lot of things. I think playing Shaman Jungle might be a thing again. I think KFC might be a thing again. I think comps like Ret Warrior or like WLS, maybe even like Shadow Play or something. I think there's going to be a lot of options for comps, to be honest.
Well, that's good.
Because I think a lot of DPS specs are really good. So maybe even like some Boomkin Resto Shaman type comps.
Interesting. Okay. So what do you think about if you were to have a change, or like if you were to change like 1 or 2 things about our shaman to get going into Shadowlands, and like Blizzard was listening, what would your like 2 recommendations be for our shaman to kind of to improve it, I guess, based on where it is now?
I would want. This It's tough. There's a lot of things that I would kind of change, but they all kind of work in tandem with each other. So, I think one of the biggest things that they've done is from WoD to Legion, they nerfed tidal waves. I think that was a PvE change. I'm pretty sure it was. But they nerfed tidal waves from WoD to Legion, so now I think it's a 20% buff instead of a 30% on your healing wave. So it just makes your spell a lot slower. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like 10 or 20% now, but it used to be a lot more. So your healing wave was actually super fast when you had your tidal waves up. So that one not only makes Shaman feel a little bit more awkward because obviously you have just slower casts, but two, they also removed the double stack of tidal waves from when you chain heal or riptide. So from WoD to Legion, you kind of lost the ability to back-to-back cast and chain cast after you riptide or after you chain heal. I think that's very awkward and kind of makes the class clunky.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so they did that from WoD to Legion, but they had a talent to make up for it. So they had a talent that gave you an extra tidal wave charge, so you had 2 again, like normal. So you could choose between that or a talent that gave you mana back if you healed someone low HP. And then in BFA, they removed that talent. So it kind of just makes things really awkward playing the class, because I think your casted heals would be okay if you were able to get more of them off.
Right.
Obviously, I think the healing on them is low, but I don't think it would be an issue necessarily if you were able to get more of them off. But the problem right now is you can't actually get those casts off. It's pretty difficult to get those casts off, and that'd probably be the biggest thing that I would like is if they didn't buff casted heals, and like maybe you could argue that they could slightly nerf Riptide if they do buff casted heals, but
right.
I think casted heals should obviously do a lot more. But if they didn't do that, I would definitely like the tidal wave change, just because I think that's something that's kept Shaman from feeling good again from a healer standpoint. Obviously, with your spells.
Yeah, that's interesting, change. Yeah, I haven't heard about that. Okay, yeah, because I only really focus on our Shaman starting in. Yeah, and really BFA, I was just mainly Ellie up until then, but that's cool. Yeah, what do you think about Earthshield? Because Earthshield used to be like a more scary ability to put on somebody. What's your? What do you think about that? Because right now, like from my perspective, it doesn't. Well, they did buff it up to 20% incoming healing. Received, but what do you think about that? I mean, that used to be something that I remember back in Legion. Anytime I could not target the person with Earthshield on, it would be so counterproductive. Do you think that it's an okay spot? Or I know there's a lot of people that talk about damage reduction and how our Shaman doesn't really have that, but what's your thoughts on like Earthshield itself right now?
I think it's going to be better in Shadowlands because they did buff the increased healing, but they also changed they reworked your legendary as well. So I think Earthshield's going to be a lot better. So they reworked it. So now instead of I think it was the legendary chest for your Earthshield. I think it was chest. I don't really remember.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so before it was a 300% increased heal from your Earthshield charges when someone was below 50%. But now it's a 150% increase when someone is below 75, which obviously you have 300 compared to 150. So they did nerf that in a sense, but I think you're going to get a lot more value out of it because I think in Arena, people are definitely below 75% way more
right.
than below 50. Because when you're below 50, obviously you're more scared of dying. So I think you'll actually get a lot more value without having to be afraid. With the new legendary,
cool.
Because I think people will dip below 75 and then
right,
like maybe before they get to 50, you'll be able to top them off. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Especially right now with the sub rogues and the skulking trinket. So, yeah.
I think it's just a lot more valuable for that because I think you'll definitely get the increased healing from that more often than you would the other one.
Yeah.
So,
are you planning to do PvE in Shadowlands? Do you think that that's still you're gonna have to be doing that? In BFA, obviously everybody had to do PvE, especially get the trinkets, to get high Azurite pieces, etc. Until you got, if you even could get a piece from the conquest drops, right? Are you expecting to do that as a kind of a requirement? I know there's a lot of discussion about the PvP vendors right now and how long it takes to gear. Do you expect that you're going to be needing to do mythic rating and all of that to be optimal? And how do you feel about it?
Well, long answer short, yep. You're gonna have to do a lot of that. So, I mean, I'm pretty much. I have not thought about that at all, the specifics of it, but I know I'm gonna have to do it. So, I know I'm gonna have to do a lot of dungeons. I know I'm probably gonna have to raid for specific pieces.
Yeah.
So it's on my mind, but it's at the same time something that I'm not too worried about because honestly, I'm kind of just used to it from BFA already. So I'm just gonna suck it up and get it done. That's kind of where my head's at with that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do you like doing PvE stuff, or if you would have it your way, would you just gear through PvP, or do you enjoy some of the PvE stuff as well?
I mean, I don't mind when there's PvE in the game. I never really have. I think the issue is when you're kind of forced to do it. And I think that's going to be what the case is for your conduits and all this stuff. I think you're going to have to do it. And I think that's the issue. So personally, I really do believe that the gearing systems back then were better just because obviously there were some systems where, or there were some expansions and some seasons where, I mean, they've always had that where PvE gear's been good, or one or two pieces were really strong, or a certain trinket or something was really strong back in the day. So Vanilla and BC and Wrath, and obviously people remember like season 11 of Kata with all these all the Dragon Soul items. But it's always been important, and even in MoP when a lot of people played mainly PvP gear, there was still some things that were really strong, like Shadow Pain trinkets, which was, I think, like, I don't remember when that was. I think that was just like the first season or second season or something. But basically, it's always been a thing to have PvE gear.
Right.
The only expansions that it wasn't a thing was in Legion and WoD. So for me, I did like WoD. I think WoD was the best system because there wasn't any PvE gear at all. On top of that, the PvP gearing system was really good and pretty simple to understand. You had a catch-up mechanic. You had a lot of different gear on the vendor that had different stats. You had set bonuses, all these things. So I think the WoD system was by far the best. But that being said, I don't mind having any of the systems prior with certain pieces being good. Yeah. The issue I have now is that not only is it hard to get gear and get the higher eye level gear because of the weekly boxes and all these things, but all the gear in PvE seems to just be 50 times better than the arena gear, which is the issue. So that's kind of where I see it. So I think it's fine to do that, but if I have to raid, like mythic raid, and do 15 like level 15 mythic keystones and all this just to play arena and like be somewhat competitive, I think that's where the issue lies.
Fair enough. Okay, cool. No, good to get your thoughts on that. Okay, so so only a few more questions, but if you were, I know you probably get this a lot on your stream, but if you were to, like, if there was a Resto Shaman out there, someone that wants to get into Resto Shaman, or maybe someone that's beginning in Resto Shaman PvP, what would be some basic tips, like your top 3 tips for them if they're just getting going and that they got their team, they're ready to go, but what would you give them tips in terms of like how to be a good Resto Shaman?
Tips. I say the same thing every time, and people always laugh at what I say when I'm streaming because it's hard to give general advice. Because obviously arena is very situational. Obviously there's a script to it that you kind of figure out when you play more and when you practice, but it's still very situational, so it's hard to give that. But I think what I would say, which is kind of what I normally do say anyways, is you want to make sure that I guess I'll break it down in 3 ways. So healing, You want to make sure your Earth Shield's on the right target, the main target, because you get the 20% bonus. You get a lot of healing from the actual Earth Shield. You want to make sure that you're pressing your Riptide and your Unleash pretty much on cooldown, because Riptide is very strong, so you want to spam your Riptide. You want to make sure you're pressing your healing stream as much as possible as well. Cast whenever you can. If you think that obviously you don't have a Riptide out, you're gonna need to cast maybe once or twice just to kind of stabilize. So the healing is it's weird to get used to at first, because obviously you don't cast all the time and you don't have a specific rotation with cast built in. You kind of just spam your instance and you make sure you have your stream down and then cast when you need to. But that's what I would say for number one, is you want to make sure you're just Earth Shield on the right target, Riptiding as much as possible, Unleash as much as you can as well. Kind of press them on cooldown pretty much to keep your team topped off, as well as healing stream. Defensively, I would say the biggest thing would be Ascendance and Link are kind of like your oh crap, we're gonna die buttons. So those buttons, you always want to make sure you're using one or the other. You kind of get a feel for which one is better depending on the situation, but those are your oh crap, we're going to lose buttons, and you need to make sure that you're kind of rotating those. There are some times where you press both of them at the same time. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best thing to do, but sometimes, it is what it is. You have to do that in order to live. But you always want to make sure you're rotating those two and having one of those buttons to kind of fall back on. Aside from that, I think Earthen Totem is still very strong, and you want to press this as much as you possibly can, but you don't want to waste it. You can also match it with cooldowns like Vendetta. You can match it with cooldowns like Combust, or like if a Windwalker's popping cooldowns or things like this. You want to make sure you're pressing as much as you can, because it is a 1 minute cooldown, so you can get it back very fast, but you don't want to waste it. So if no one's really taking any damage, it's kind of not worth it to press the button. Or obviously if you're sitting back behind the pillar, people are CC'd, not really worth it. If you're about to be CC'd, then it's worth it. If they have cooldowns up, then it's worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
So I think that would be number 2. Number 3, I don't know if I really have a number 3. I feel like those are the most.
Yeah. What about when do you be offensive? Like when do you? Because when I watch you, you're always offensive, right? So when do you know the right time to like heal versus be offensive? So like your team's at, let's say they're all at like 80-90% health. Like, am I being offensive? Do I want to make sure I have my Riptides and cooldown first, and then I want to like how would you?
I think
how do you
being
think about
offensive all depends on what's happening in the game. If people are CC'd, how low health you are. It depends on how if you are able to kind of have a lot of healing out. So let's say I have like Riptides out on people. I have Earth Shield up on my guy. I have the Riptide hot on him. I have a healing stream down. I have a healing tide down, or like I have an Earthen down or something. Good time to be offensive. If no one's really taking damage, there's no cooldowns out. My guy's at like even at like 60-ish, 70%, you can still be offensive. And what I mean by that is you don't have to sit there and spam lightning bolt or just make sure you're pumping every global into doing damage. But you can be offensive in the sense that you press Purge, you press a Flame Shock, you Riptide him in between globals, you Lava Burst the guy once, you Riptide him again, things like that. So there's definitely moments where you, like I said, it's kind of a feeling out process. It's very hard to give a general tip or suggestion as to what to do. But for the most part, you just have to. It's a feeling out process, and you have to kind of realize what healing you have out, whether people are CC'd, how low your partner is. If my partner is at like 75%, like I said, and I have Earth Shield on him, I have the Riptide hot on him, I have a healing stream down, I've got a healing tide down. Maybe I have double stream down because I play Echo, so maybe I have double stream. Then you know what? If it's me, I'm not gonna lie, I'm doing everything I can to just spam damage. That's probably what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
It's all a feeling out process. You kind of get used to whether or not they have cooldowns up, whether or not your person's gonna die. Like if someone's in a stun and they're getting attacked by Rogue Mage or something, it's probably not the best thing to do to press Flame Shock and start lightning bolting people. But it all depends on what's happening.
Yeah.
And I think the best thing I would say is you kind of need to feel it out. But if you ever do go offensive, you want to make sure that before you do that, you have a healing stream down. You've got an earthen down, maybe. You kind of make sure your Riptide charges are done with. You don't ever want to sit on 2 Riptides. I think that's really bad to do. It's to just sit on 2 Riptides for a long time. So I would say that's what I would say, probably.
Okay. No, that's awesome. That's and like I know that, that everything you just said is going to be is mega helpful for anybody that is, learning, or they're just picking it up, or they haven't really thought about it that way before. Cause I know many people are when they just start doing arena, they're trying to get their first 2K or whatever, they're thinking, what the hell's going on? Right. So I think everything you just said is incredibly, will be incredibly helpful. And I know I've been made fun of every time I start an arena game and I start off our shaman with a flame shock, and that's just my Ellie brain thinking. But yeah, so no, that's awesome. So yeah, thanks for that. No, that's really awesome. Cool. So I guess I only have. It sounds like we went over what your thoughts were on our shaman in Shadowlands. You talked about the your choice covenant. We talked about the legendary, the Earthshield one. It sounds like that's your go-to. So that's awesome. I think it sounds like you're not worried though. Like some people are running around a little worried, especially with Pack Spirit gone. It sounds like you're not worried. You're actually excited for some of the offensive pressure overall. Is that your kind of overall position?
I am excited to kind of be able to separate myself again. Mainly, I think managing your mana is going to be very important. So being able to know when you can kind of take damage from someone with Water Shield, kind of how you used to do back then when you had it. So you don't before, nowadays, kind of Shaman kind of turned into, oh, I'm getting attacked, I'm Earth Shielding instantly, and I'm running away and Ghost Wolf. That's kind of what it turned into. Especially in BFA, it was kind of just, oh, well, I'm just going to Ghost Wolf and just sit here. But I think now you'll definitely have moments where, or at least I hope that mana stays kind of relevant. You'll have moments where it's better to, let's say a warrior charges you. You don't instantly swap Earth Shield. You have Water Shield up for maybe 1 tick, 2 ticks. Then you Earth Shield swap. Then you can worry about obviously having to kite and heal yourself. Or even then just being able to keep up Water Shield if somebody is attacking you, but you're not under too much pressure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's going to be very important. I think obviously making sure that you're using your Mana Tide as often as possible is very important, because the worst thing about Mana Tide people do with Mana Tide for the most part is just kind of using it when they're already instead of. So let's say the game is 6-7 minutes long, and you're dropping Mana Tide when you're dead then you've missed out on 2 other potential Mana Tides. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's going to be very important. I think the fact that Shaman can. I think in my opinion, I think Shaman's going to have a skill cap again with being able to survive. So I think that's going to be very exciting, because it's been a long time since I've kind of been able to. It's been a long time since I felt like I could separate myself in that category, because I felt like that was something I was better at than most.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's going to be very exciting. I think that your damage is going to be a lot of fun to do as well, with the fact that you can actually afford to press Flame Shock and not within 2 seconds. I think that's going to be fun. So
you sound pretty positive.
Yeah, everything.
It's pretty positive.
I'm excited, man. I think it's somewhat of a copy paste. Is it my favorite version of Shaman? Not really, but
that's awesome.
It's still the same class.
Yeah. And
I think that even with Earthshield and Mana Tide, and I mean, let's not forget Frost Shock. Oh my god.
Oh, that's true.
I'm so excited to have that back.
I watched you play with that, and well, there used to be a Frost Shock talent, right? That roots them. I was watching you play with that in some of the videos I saw of you. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that was even a thing.
Yeah, I was playing because I play Surge when I play Ellie, so that's fun to do. It's fun to be able to have stuff like that again.
Yeah.
So I think Frost Shock is obviously, it's not the most insane thing that compared to some classes that you have Disc Priest that can just steal your abilities, stuff like that.
Right.
But I'll take it. Water Shield, Mana Tide, Frost Shock, and then a lower mana cost on your damage. I'll take it. I think it'll be exciting.
That's
honestly.
awesome. That's awesome. All right, so I only have one more question for you. Well, I have 2 more questions. One is, we talked about Buffalo Wild Wings earlier. We definitely want them to keep sending you food. But what is your favorite sauce? Or if you had to pick, what would it be?
Caribbean jerk is by far my favorite. I think that's the best one they have. I don't eat much spicy food, so that is hot enough for me to feel it, but also not enough to make me cry like mango habanero does.
Right.
So I like that flavor the most. I think it has a really good taste. It's very hot as well, especially for someone that doesn't ever eat spicy food. So
Right.
that would be my favorite. I think mango habanero is really good too, but obviously every time I have that, I start crying. That one's too much. The buffalo flavor they have, the dry seasoning, and then Asian zing. So I think those are the best.
Damn. Okay. All right. No, good to know. I'll have to try that next time
There you go. Yeah.
I snag some. All right. And then last question is the koala. What's the deal? What's the deal with the koala?
Everyone likes certain animals, and that's just the one I like. I've always thought they were super cool looking, and they're very cute animals. They have fluffy ears too. Yeah. I don't know. I like them. Not to mention they sleep all day, so I feel like that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. Everyone has their own like favorite animal or animals that they like, and that's always a question too. When people ask to join the guild, I always ask them their favorite animal.
Nice.
Because we can't get any weirdos in here. Saying like,
what's a weird animal?
I don't even know. I was just saying that to be mean. I don't know.
Like an armadillo or something? Or...
Yeah, like if someone says armadillo or something, it's like, dude, you couldn't have picked a bear or like a panda,
right?
Or like a dolphin or something.
Yeah. No, they had to go weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Or platypus. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Who likes that? Whose favorite animal is platypus?
No one likes that.
That's true. That's why it's on the show. I hear it. But all right, cool.
Exactly.
Cool, man. Well, hey, you know what? We went over everything that I wanted to go over and even more. So I appreciate you. Coming by and chatting with me. I appreciate it. And it sounds like our Shaman's going to be okay. So I think there's a lot of people out there that are really worried. They're looking at Disc Priest, which is looking all flashy and nice.
I think it's going to be good. I think Shaman, Priest, and Druid are going to be the best three. I think Pally, Monk, and Holy Priest are probably going to be bottom of the tier list, but I don't think they're going to be terrible. And then I think Pally will probably have a certain place in the meta, but I definitely think Shaman and Priest are going to be really good. I think Druid is too. So I'm excited. I don't think it's going to be bad at all.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it now even more now that I didn't know actually about the like Flame Shock mana cost going down and you know that makes me pretty happy too because I like the idea of being offensive. I like that Arshawn has a shear and a lot of things you can do there. So that's awesome. That's exciting for me and I'm sure like a lot of people will be like, oh,
that's always been the fun part, man. That's always been the fun part. That's why BFA was not so fun for me. That's always been the fun part, and then it kind of was just really bad to do.
Hey, well, you know what? When you were playing Paladin in 8.3, you did have an interrupt. It was just called Hodge. It was up every 12 seconds, so it doesn't.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
that was nice. I like that too. That was fun. That was fun for a bit. When you're playing with it, it's fun. When you're playing against it, it's not so fun. But...
yeah, that's I think a whole lot of Holy Paladins are going to wake up and actually they probably already waking up now. But in Shadowlands, it's going to be interesting how they adjust to not having cooldowns all the time. But don't want to be toxic. But
no, it'll be an adjustment for sure. But they'll figure out a way with. Something on Pally is going to be broken. Who knows? You can play. Apparently you can play like Venthyr, the interrupt reduction. You can play that with concentration aura. So yeah, they're probably gonna have a lot of fun with that. You just can't get kicked ever.
Oh.
Yeah. So apparently that stacks. So
why Blizzard?
I don't know. We'll see.
Jeez, Ian plays H Pally now. That's what I'm hearing. So. Just saying.
He does that and Disc Priest. That's what we've learned.
But cool. Hey, man, I appreciate you catching up. This has been really cool and good to get your insight, especially the tips. I think those will be like really helpful for people. So cool.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, thanks, man. Check out ABSTERG'S links down in the description. He's an awesome guy, very kind to take this much time and talk with us about Resto Shaman. I hope this quelled some of your fears. And check out his Twitch, check out his YouTube. Go check him out right now. Go. And we'll see you every night on our channel to talk about this and even more. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.